This week's specials for Miles Franklin are 1 ounce 2023 silver Krugerrands only $3.10 over spot, along with backdated 10th ounce gold maples for only $29 over melt. We have new specials every single Monday, affordable prices, and one of the largest inventories of precious metals I've personally ever seen. Email me, slayer@milesfranklin.com, or call me at 330-485-6172. That is 330-485-6172. Now let's jump into the video. Welcome back, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are here with Andy Schechtman for another episode. We're going to be doing the exact same format as last time, asking questions. You guys really enjoyed that. It was a great episode. So Andy, what's up? Before we jump into the questions, is there anything you wanted to talk about? I know we talked about capital gains tax right before this, which is a pretty big deal. So is there anything else along with that as well?
You know, I know that we can talk about anything. That capital gains tax, I believe it's by Congressman Mooney, I think, from West Virginia. This dude has been very gold friendly. If you could ever get him on your show,
yeah, Robert Mooney.
Interview. Yeah,
Robert Mooney.
I don't know what his first name is, but I know he's from West Virginia, I believe, and he's the one who has been trying to pass all sorts of gold and silver friendly, constitutional money friendly bills, and he is basically saying that it should be exempt from federal capital gains tax. And we're seeing a lot of states out there that are doing this as well, that are passing legislation that are saying, hey, you know, no more capital gains tax on a state level. We'd like to see it move as far, obviously, to a federal level, and that would be a massive boon for gold. And, you know, shit, you take a look at what Biden is trying to pass. If he were to get reelected, he's raising capital gains, just regular capital gains, to 44.5%. You know, you couldn't do anything more stupid. So you got Mooney going the other direction as it pertains to gold, and that would be as it should. This is money. It's issued by the United States Treasury, if we're talking gold eagles and silver eagles. You should never be charged capital gains for that. You know, that's like saying that it just shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't happen. I don't need to go down that road, but the bottom line is it just should never happen. And I don't know what the likelihood of being passed is, but I do know he's throwing it out there, and I think it has already been submitted. I don't know how far it goes. How it goes from an idea to being a member. You're old enough, you remember that I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill, that song. Older people out there will remember it on Saturday morning cartoons, but I don't remember how it actually goes from being a bill to getting legs underneath it. But at this point, it's just a bill, and it hasn't been ratified yet.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. You know, there is a lot of changes, like I don't know how many states now have already passed the, I guess we could call it the gold standard again. I don't know how similar it is to the previous one, but I know that wasn't there like 4 states that have already considered precious metals legal tender again?
I could probably tell you here real quick. Hold on.
Yeah, I think there was 20 something.
Tell you real quick. Let's see. Bear with me. I'll tell you. Yeah. Where do I find that?
Remember last I checked, there was like 3 or 4. But
yeah, there's even more than that right now. Okay, so you have, in terms of states that have passed it, that wasn't, where did it go? Hang on. Oklahoma has, Texas has, let me see here. Kentucky has introduced bills to seek the end of it, but there's a map. I know where I can look. Hang on. Sorry to do this to you. Hang on.
That's okay. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I never thought we would see that day.
Yeah, honestly. Me neither. Let's see here. Yeah, U.S. representative introduces bill to end federal taxation on gold and silver. That is him. Let's see. So I can't tell you. Well, to date, 43 states have removed some or all taxes from the purchase of gold and silver. Of the 7 states that still apply this outmoded tax to purchase precious metals, 5 of them considered legislation to end this tax in 23. There's a lot of them, and I don't know which ones exactly. I want to say Texas, Utah, I believe Kentucky, Arkansas, or Oklahoma. I'll find it as we continue to go through here. I'll find it for you right now. You can ask me some more questions, and I'll find this.
Yeah, let's bring up these questions because I know there was a lot of them. And I know a lot of people wanted a chance to ask. So, first one is from Treasure Stacker. Can silver become a tier one asset like gold?
It should be a tier one asset because of its utility. I don't know that it will be. I mean, you have a lobby in Canada trying to push it into a strategic metal from being an industrial metal. I mean, you could argue it is strategic. It should be tier one. I don't know that it will ever be recognized that way like gold is, but in essence, it should definitely be strategic. It's needed for so many things that tier one has to do more with the way that it's valued on balance sheets, and the way that it is it carries no it's a riskless asset. Now, I don't think silver will be that because of its industrial needs, but in essence, it should be. And you could argue it's even more important than gold, but for sure strategic. That's what it should be.
Yeah, and actually following up on that, someone asked, Andy, what would happen to the price of silver if or when it does become listed as a strategic metal?
Well, I mean, it would just become recognized as being the most undervalued asset in the world.
Yeah.
And this is why you have 4 or 5 commercial banks with the largest concentrated short position of any metal or any commodity ever traded on COMEX. They don't want the world to understand how important it is. Who's they? I don't know. Is it the military industrial complex that needs silver for all their high tech weaponry? Is this why the pickaxe has done such a great job of showing us all that there is a need for silver in military components, and yet it's not listed in the Silver Institute supply demand fundamentals? Don't know, but I think that demand for silver ought to be reflective of its real utility, its real demand. And because of the naked shorting on COMEX, because of the 16 or 1700% rehypothecation, where COMEX contracts are sold over and over and over and over again, effectively destroying the real supply demand fundamentals, price discovery has yet to really fully materialize. I think more than anything, if you were to blow up the COMEX price scheme of it being set on the Western markets, you would understand what the real price is. And there will come a day, I believe, when COMEX and the LBMA is no longer the go-to source of price setting in the world, and it will move eastward to the countries that accumulate, produce, and own it all. And that would be Shanghai, that would be Dubai, that would be Moscow. These would be the exchanges in the countries that understand what gold and silver represent. They're the ones that have been producing and accumulating it all. They've been the ones that have been taking possession of it all through exchange for physical and other means. So yeah, I think that will come. I don't know what it will be. The what if questions are hard to imagine, but I think you could argue that if you just took the price of gold right now at 23.40 and divide it by even by 42, you get $56. Divide it by 7 and you get 334. That's what it's coming out of the ground at. The first number, 42, that's been its average price ratio for over 150 years. So a lot higher than it is now. And you take the ability of COMEX to rehypothecate and to create ridiculous leverage that is a gamble, has nothing to do with supply demand fundamentals. The price will go parabolic, and maybe it's a recognition of it being strategic by the traders and whatnot. To me, it's the scheme that's been going on for 30 years on COMEX that really seems to be coming to an end in many respects. So maybe we're closer to that moment than we think.
Head Butler does an amazing job at breaking down COMEX corruption. And if anyone is curious, I would go check out his research. It's like Butler research. He dives deep into COMEX corruption, but the whole purpose of all of his information and his research is saying that this won't last forever. And he's extremely bullish on silver. He said some wild numbers before. I don't even want to mention, but yeah, it really is something interesting. This person goes off of the COMEX, continuing on that. They say, where can we find SGE charts showing silver and gold premium over the COMEX? Andy keeps saying this, but I can't find any evidence of it.
So it is on Twitter. The guy's name is at Oriental_Ghost. At Oriental_Ghost. And today's numbers show silver at $31.43 an ounce. in terms of what they're paying. And he publishes it every single day at Oriental_Ghost on Twitter. Awesome, awesome information.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, I just replied that to him. Okay, so what would happen to the price of gold if central banks sold their gold to pay off or pay down the national debt?
Well,
Just
instead of doing that, I think they could just revalue their gold to pay off, and they don't have to pay off their debt in
oh,
essence.
that's
I
a
mean, if you
huh.
revalue your gold, and if you go and look at all the central bank balance sheets, look at one of the central bank balance sheets, you'll see gold is held in an account called the gold revaluation account. That's the name of the account on every central bank balance sheet. Ironic, isn't it? The head of the Dutch National Bank said we should revalue the price of gold. That's what Roosevelt did behind me. He confiscated gold because it was money back then. Everyone owned it, paid everyone $20.56 per ounce when it was at $20 an ounce. 56 cents in 1933 was a lot of money. A dozen eggs were probably a nickel. And so they thought, oh, that's a good deal. But then he devalued the dollar and gold went up by 40% to 35 bucks an ounce. So, they can revalue the price of gold, which on every balance sheet in Europe is held at $35 an ounce still. So they could revalue it to 5,000, 10,000 an ounce. This is why people say gold will be revalued. What it would immediately offset the balance sheet, their liabilities would immediately be offset by gold at a way higher price. And I think that is a possibility. To me, I think you see gold revalued before you see countries understanding what we are transitioning into a new period where gold will be essential. Because right now it seems to me that gold is being used, gold and oil in particular, are being used as money. They're being remonetized across the globe. I really do believe that, man. And I think that when you look at the way that the world is accumulating gold right now and using it in a fashion to, in essence, pay for oil and gas and other commodities first in their own currencies, and then those currencies are recycled into gold reserves instead of treasuries. I think you'll see gold prices go much higher. I think that they will revalue the price of gold on their balance sheets. I don't know if the IMF does it. I don't know if the BRICS do it, but I think you will see that because I think gold and oil is becoming a currency or re-becoming a currency. So to sell it, no, but I think to revalue it would be a higher probability.
That's a good point. I also like how you mentioned the what if questions are hard to answer because that is an important thing when reading all these. There's questions that are like set in stone that you could answer, and there's a lot of like hypotheticals, and those are really hard to break down, especially in today's economy and how crazy things are, and November's election and all this. So yeah, I feel like some people have to remember that it's like predicting the weather. Like there's an idea, but a wrench could get thrown in that could change everything like drastically. That's also why sometimes when you're reading this information, or like these forecasts on like Kitco or something, it's like right now this might say something, but you have to keep in mind how many other FOMC meetings are going to be occurring in the next couple of months, or the
Right.
November election and what that's going to entail and how that's going to affect the price. And then there's going to be some event I can almost guarantee within the next couple of months that nobody could predict that's going to change the economy drastically for better or for worse, probably for worse, given the state of everything. People don't think about those unknown variables.
I agree
Um,
completely.
yeah. So this person, let's get back to some more fun stuff. This guy says, "What's Andy's favorite thing to stack?"
Silver Eagles and $20 gold pieces. I don't, people who talk to me will tell you that I've never heard them say anything about $20 gold pieces because for the last several years they've been too expensive. But if I had my choice, I would own silver Morgan dollars, silver American Eagles, and pre 1933 $10 and $20 gold pieces. That would for sure be my favorite choice. But it has to be an environment where the price of those coins is reasonable. For most of the last 4 years, I didn't recommend gold, silver eagles because they were too expensive. So I won't recommend it if it's too expensive based upon, everything I've seen in 34 years. But I will say to you that if I had my druthers, it would be Silver Eagles, Silver Morgan dollars, and pre-1933 gold, 10 and $20 gold pieces. Um, Short of that, American Eagle Gold, American Eagle Buffalo, I like an awful lot as well. Still looking for these damn things on the states. So keep asking, I'll find it.
Yeah. A lot of people ask about those 1 ounce Trump bars, the one for presidents. We had those in stock for a little bit, but uh, it's those are hard to come by. But yeah, I agree. I definitely think that sticking to United States minute stuff is probably the best option. Before I didn't believe that. I was a guy that had pandas and all these other things, which I guess I liked the artwork on them. I liked, some of the history behind some of the coins are cool. I actually have an MS-70 2021 Morgan early release, which that coin I bought it in 2021, obviously. That coin's already quadrupled in value because, and I kind of got lucky on this. Well, one, it's the 100-year anniversary of Morgan, stopped being minted in 1921. It's MS-70. I got it right when it came out, so it's a lot cheaper. It's an early release, but also because the United States Mint canceled the following year the 2022 Morgan and silver piece dollars because they didn't have enough silver to do so. They focused on normal eagles, so they canceled the following year. So I have an MS-70 perfect condition Morgan and a 100-year anniversary. They got it for like 50 something dollars now. They're well over 100, some $200 already. I don't know. I
Now,
thought that
when
was
I say the Morgan dollars, usually
you're talking about
I'm
yeah,
talking about the older
yeah,
ones. But
1886 or whatever, Carson City
yes,
Mint. Yeah, yeah. I know.
yes.
I was just when you mentioned that, I was just like, yeah, I got one of the new ones, but yeah, I would never recommend buying a new Morgan, especially if it's not like that's a unique opportunity because I knew it would grow in value because it's the 100th anniversary. They just brought it back. I would never just randomly just buy a new MS-70 Morgan, especially now, unless it was like so there are special situations where you could take advantage if you know how to find coins like that. I've been doing this for a long time, so I knew that would. Also, it's not even about that. I just thought it'd be cool to have an MS-70 Morgan. But yeah, I know what you're saying though. But Morgans are tricky. You got to know, which every year has a different mintage. Some are you got to know what Carson City Mint is compared to, Philadelphia Mint. You got to know how to grade sometimes from your own eyes what a VG is, or, and sometimes people on eBay will rip you off saying it's a better grade than it is. So that's a tricky market. Morgans are. But
Well, don't buy on eBay. Buy from a company like mine or one of the
yeah,
major online companies that have great reputation, and that won't ever happen.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Well, we offer money back guarantee. You find something that you don't agree with, we'll exchange it.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is a really good point. This person says, what is backing the silver ETFs and physical silver? And what would happen if everyone exchanged their ETFs into physical? I guess I could have answered that myself, but we can go into that a little bit.
What is backing the ETFs?
Yeah, what's backing the ETFs and physical silver, and what would happen if everyone exchanged their ETFs into physical?
Well, first of all, supposedly the ETFs are backed by a commensurate amount of silver that each share, it's called a proxy, where each share is representative of an amount of silver in the vault. During Silver Squeeze, there was such great demand for the ETFs that the custodian, JP Morgan and BlackRock, published an addendum to the prospectus that said there may be more demand. Because of demand, there may be more shares than there are silver bars backing it, in theory. That's in the prospectus. But in the prospectus, it says that only the folks that have the ability to redeem a basket, which you're talking, I don't know, 20, $30 million worth or more, have the ability to, if it's allowed, because sometimes they will disallow redemptions, but you're talking the commercial banks that have the ability to redeem the gold and silver. The rest of us don't. If you own GLD and SLV, and even if you have several $million worth, you're not getting the metal out of it. You can only, it's a cash representation. And so if you look at how the ETFs have been going down in American participation, meaning the what's inside the ETFs have been falling. It means people have been selling into the rally and buying crypto and Bitcoin and Nvidia as the price keeps going higher. And that is a massive contrarian indicator. So, in this case, you could argue it has been happening. People have been selling, and At the same time, you have positive real yields if you believe the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which I don't, but let's just call it as it is. Positive real yields, a strong dollar, and the American public asleep at the switch and, in fact, selling into the rally. Look at the ETF numbers, you'll see that. Um, and yet the price keeps going higher because the central banks and the big money who know the playbook are front running all of this. By the time the public wakes up and jumps on board, the easy pickings, the low lying fruit will be long gone, and what is very flush and available right now can very quickly change when you see a mass hysteria, people realizing they need to do something. And in large part, the American public has not taken part in much of any of this rally at all. In fact, the statistics would bear that out.
Yeah, I thought this was very interesting this last time around. I mean, even right now, like I usually have a pretty good idea of people's perspective on the markets, not only from being a YouTube channel and just, view wise. If a lot of people are talking about silver and there's hype, I'll see my numbers way up and I'll have more emails. And now that I'm also a broker, more clients. And it seems like after it dropped back down from 2990, people I feel like kind of got scared off. I don't know. I don't know if there's something more to it, but yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. But there still is, looking at silver. I guess we could talk about this for a second as well, as it is stabilizing at these extremely high prices. I feel like we've never really seen that before. Every time silver has reached 29, like in early 2021 during Wall Street silver stuff, it would shoot back down to like 22, 23 and sit there for, years sometimes. And now it's still up at 28, 29. And it's as soon as it breaks past that $30 threshold, that psychological resistance level, sky's the limit. We haven't seen silver break above 30 and sit there since $50 silver in 2011. And we're inching ourselves up. And now we're at this space where the bottom is 28, mid 28. That's huge. A lot of people don't realize how big of a deal that is.
Well, I
What do you
agree
think
with you.
about that? Yeah.
No, I mean, I agree with you. It's harder. The only way you can manipulate a market over an extended period of time is to push it in the direction it's going. And when you have a country like India, who's purchased over 500 million ounces of silver in the last 3 years, there's only 300 million ounces of silver on COMEX total, of which only roughly 40 some million are 42, 3 million are in the registered category. Those are the bars that are available for delivery, backing the contracts, which have been rehypothecated 1,800%, meaning 18 people are sold the same contract. Only one would get it if they stood for delivery. And so it is a situation where the COMEX market is being it's blurring the reality. It's blurring the reality of the price and of the demand. And I think you could see a period of time where um, you know there's a rush to accumulate physical. There's a rush to find price discovery, and this could very quickly overwhelm the COMEX. It could very quickly overwhelm the shorts that are on COMEX, and very quickly you could see what real price discovery looks like, where supply and demand find equilibrium, where it isn't being distorted by the leverage on COMEX. And it seems like we're getting to that point quickly, much faster, because these countries that for as recent as a few years ago, in and of themselves, would not have had the ability to stand up to the West and their manipulation and their central banks and their commercial banks and the ramifications they now in unison can. And that's why you're seeing such massive delivery and exchange for physical coming out around the globe, emanating from COMEX, where they're draining the exchanges based upon the make-believe prices. That won't end well. It's one of these deals where I've always said little by little by little by little and bang all at once. Well, the little by little has been going on for a long time. When is the all at once? Don't know, but it's coming as far as I'm concerned.
90% of the movement happens last 10% of the leg. And
Yes.
yeah, it's so insane to me realizing, especially when you said there's only 300 million ounces on COMEX, or 500 million, you said. How much did you say there was?
There's 300 million ounces on COMEX right now, of which roughly 250 or 60 million is in the eligible category. Those are bars that are not for sale. Like last time we talked about the $250 million orders we did over the last year and a half, one of them has way over 1 million ounces in 1,000 ounce bars in Brinks, New York City. That is one that of our 9 vaults in Comex. I mean, in Brinks, our storage program. That's the only Comex vault, JFK and Brinks JFK. And the bars they have there are in the eligible category, meaning they are eligible to be sold on Comex because they're in the Comex ecosystem, but they're not for sale. It's the registered bars that are, of which there's just over 42 million ounces in registered, but there are 1,800% more contracts issued on
That
those
is
42 million ounces. So in essence, if you take, let's just say 42 times 18, 756 million ounces in contracts backed off of 42 million ounces in bars. That's a problem if everyone
yeah.
wants their silver at once. That's the
Yep.
distortion that we see created by the West, which I think is coming to an end.
That's what I try to tell people. Like every ounce of silver you have in your hand, just think about 18 other people online thinking they have that same ounce, but they don't. So I always say, if you can't hold it, you don't own it.
True,
But
true that.
uh, and also there's a couple of things I want to mention. Rest in peace, Herbert Hunt. One of the Hunt brothers died last week. Obviously everyone knows them from 1980, cornering the market, getting silver banned, basically.
But it's the same environment they saw, the
Yep.
exact same environment. They saw an environment where there were more bars or more contracts issued than there were bars backing it. And this is a situation that I think is people should understand, um, that there's no difference in what they saw versus what we see here today. Is just there's no one standing to corner the market.
Yeah, and they vilified them. I don't even know if that's a word. They like the media portrayed them as like these evil villains, but of course, they're gonna do that because back then all these people are seeing this popular story. Why are these guys buying silver? And of course, silver is a direct threat to the dollar. The government's not going to want everyone knowing that these guys are investing into silver because the dollar is worthless and you can preserve your wealth in this this asset. So of course, just the only way to kill the story, since it was so much hype, is make them seem like these evil criminals. So then people are like, don't even question why they're doing this. I because that story, I went down this huge rabbit hole of the Hunt brothers because there's like the mainstream media story, but I went way deeper and it was pretty messed up the way that if you look at some of the under the surface stuff that happened.
They made being long over a certain amount illegal. You could be short as much as you want. So in essence, all of the contracts they had accumulated in which they wanted to stand for delivery were rendered illegal. So they were forced to sell them or go to jail. And so that's the point.
I also wanted to mention this. You said there's roughly 240 million ounces on the COMEX. The This is insane. Over the last 3 years, we've had a deficit of over 500 million ounces in the red of silver. Like that speaks for itself. In the last 3 years, we've had a deficit of over 500 million ounces, like 256 million a couple of years ago. And then last year wasn't that much. This year is 190 million ounces. And then they're predicting next year will be like over that. That is insane to think that we already have a deficit in just the last 3 years. So just
But
think
those
about
numbers don't include the military industrial
exactly.
complex.
Yeah. And then when I made that video talking about this, yeah, I was like, and then imagine including that because they're saying that there's more silver in military and aerospace than solar alone. And if solar is the number one category, then what are we talking about? Like that is nuts to think about. So
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I agree. But ask yourself more importantly, why? Why would they be short? And why are they trying to hold it down? Well, it is the military industrial complex. That will end very badly if the rest of the world understands that and starts to challenge them for what it is. And I think that's what India is doing. I think they understand that. So, this is something that I think will only get worse. It will only get more acute, and it will be very violent when it moves up in the respect that you can't control a market where the demand is as big as it truly is. Um, Most of the time that I've been doing this over the last 3+ decades, the global demand for gold and silver has been muted, but now it's insatiable and growing, as is the de-dollarization and the de-treasurization that we're seeing alongside of it. And this is a bad recipe for the shorts on COMEX looking to hold prices down. I think it ends poorly.
That was a brilliant way of breaking it all down. Wow. So this person says, I would like to know his take on the mining sector. Does he invest in PM mining stocks, and which ones? Also, does he have an opinion on other commodities, uranium, natural gas, lithium, etc.?
Yeah, I do. I have Rick Rule has been kind enough to refer me all of his business for a long time. And he used to run a company called Global Resource Investments, and then he became the chairman of Sprott Global USA. And he left Sprott recently to do his own thing. But I still work with Sprott here in the United States, and they have an office in Carlsbad. And the brokers there are my dear friends, several of them. And out of respect, I have a managed account with one of their brokers. And I don't even know the stocks that I own. I gave him autonomy. His name is Eric Angeli. He's a hell of a broker, and he's done very well by me. But I do own mining shares. It represents a much smaller portion of my assets. I think if you envision a pyramid, where the base of your pyramid would be things like paid off real estate, precious metals, um, assets, whatever those assets are, paid for assets in the base of your pyramid. The middle portion of your pyramid would be something like short-term treasuries or utility stocks paying off a little interest, throwing off a little interest, a little more risky. And the top 10% of your pyramid would be cryptocurrencies and mining shares. The volatility and the leverage that you get on that top 10% can make more than the bottom 90% combined, but it cuts both ways. So the theory that the Swiss have used for 300 years is your base 60, 70% of your assets are low growth, safe, stable, boring, if you will. The middle portion is something a little bit more speculative, throwing off some income, and the top 10% is the home run. If you lose everything on the top 10% and make nothing break even on the middle 20 or 30, at least the base of your pyramid keeps you from moving backwards. Now, in a perfect world, you kill it in crypto and mining shares, and you make that middle portion of 5% interest on 6-month treasuries, then the bottom of your pyramid is just gravy. So yes, I do own mining shares. I own my biggest holding that I do know is it's silver stock. It's not. I own First Majestic, but my biggest holding is, can't believe I can't think of it, but I'll tell you in a second.
Pan
Um,
American.
no, Pan American. Yep, Pan American Silver is my largest silver holding. I own some gold royalty companies, Royal Gold, Franco Nevada. There are some juniors and stuff that I don't own, or that I don't know what I own. But the big ones I think are what most people should own: Pan American, First Majestic, Hecla,
Yeah.
these kind of companies, and the royalty companies, which have a better business model than the mining companies do. And that's like the Royal Gold and the Pan American and Silver Wheaton. Those are all stocks that I own and like, but don't confuse the two. They're not the same thing as physical metals. They are more leveraged. They can make you more money, and it cuts both ways. You can lose more money, but I do think people should own some. They are wickedly undervalued in comparison to where they have been for a long time. I know I own Fortuna and Endeavor Silver also. I'm positive of that.
I'm gonna have to like clip when you started from that pyramid model. That's such a good way to look at it. That's so brilliant.
It's
Like,
the opposite of Exeter's pyramid, where gold and silver are the pyramid's tipped over,
yeah.
and
Oh
it's
yeah, that is if you think about it, like if you go to a bank or something, it'll be flip-flopped.
yeah, and so again, to me, people wouldn't under most people wouldn't understand that gold and silver are would belong in the bottom part of your pyramid, but they do to me, along with paid for real estate, along with any assets that you own. And if you look at wealthy people, dude, it's not their bank accounts, it's their assets. Wealthy people have lots of assets, and assets make you rich. Liability, what's the old saying? Assets feed you, liabilities eat you. And so your assets are in the base of your pyramid. And then the things that are speculative move up and up and up. The more the speculation, the higher up in the pyramid they go, because that's a smaller and smaller percentage of your assets. So when you get up to the top of the pyramid, it's, 5-10% of your assets. But if look, I'll make an example. I own $9,000 of a stock at one time called Western Copper. A client of mine, God rest his soul, his name was John Tomchek. He was a geologist. He said, "How much money do you got?" I said, 9 grand. I was 20 years old. And he says, "Put it all into Western Copper. Trust me, do it." I'm like, "Okay, fine. It's in an IRA." I did. It changed its name shortly after to Western Silver. I bought it all at 4, 5, 6 cents a share. I had, thousands and thousands of shares for 9 grand, and it got changed its name to Western Silver, got bought by Glamis for like $7, and Glamis got bought by Goldcorp for around 30. And I turned 9,000 into $670,000, $9,000. Now I've done that once in 34 years. It's not like this is a common occurrence. But in mining shares, that's kind of leverage you can find if you buy some juniors and explorations. So, the majority of your assets should be in the majors and the royalty companies. If you want to throw a few grand at the miner or the miners and the explorations, yeah, you can have that type of jackpot if it hits. But that's why it should belong up in the top part of your pyramid, where if it doesn't hit and you don't make it, you're not crushed. Um, that's kind of the philosophy behind it. The more stable the asset, the more it should belong in the base of your pyramid, so you don't tip over based on speculation.
Yeah, that's awesome, by the way. I think it's pretty easy. I don't know if it's just from my perspective since I do so much research, but like looking at First Majestic Silver, Keith Neumeyer, he's always getting interviewed. He's always updating how much they annually produce, or Phillips Baker, the CEO of Hecla Mining. These companies, I think Phillips Baker said they mined 16 million ounces last year, which is a record for them. And Keith Neumeyer mentioned like just above 10 million, which is actually insane to think how little. Like I like you would think 10 million ounces is a lot, but when you have an annual demand of 1.2 billion, these are the top producing silver miners in America, and they're producing like 10 to 15
Well,
million
that's
ounces.
why
That's
only
in,
300 million ounces came from silver producers. Of the 1 billion that was mined, the rest came from companies that have no business mining silver. They're mining other things. Oh, look, we found some silver. And so that's a situation where only underscores the potential of silver, because it's depleting, it's disappearing. So if it's hard for companies who mine silver to find it, that means big deposits most likely were found long ago, and there aren't those big deposits anymore. So this is one of the supply demand imbalances that the manipulation on COMEX distorts. And if supply and demand were allowed to find equilibrium rather than it being controlled and rehypothecated on the price setting mechanism, which is now being used against us by countries like India and China who understand this, then the price would be much higher, and ultimately it will be much higher. And that's why China is offering $3 an ounce higher, almost $31 an ounce for silver in Shanghai, because that's how they arbitrage it by the dumb traders who will buy it in the West and deliver it in the East, and it will never come back ever again. And this is why they think slow and methodically, and we think, in terms of seconds, where instant gratification isn't fast enough, where people now they don't have a time horizon, and a time horizon is what it used to be about when I was in forever. Everything I've ever learned is you let the laws of compounding of time and interest work for you instead of against you. And now no one wants to do anything of that nature. They want to make it all now. I'll put it all into Bitcoin and make a gazillion dollars, or I'll put it all into this crypto or that crypto or this mining share, or I'll just buy a bunch of lottery tickets, or I'll go to the casino. It's this gambling mentality that, instead of doing things methodically and letting time and interest compound in your favor, these are what made the big money wealthy over the years. The young money now here that's gotten lucky, those that have and crushed it in things like crypto or whatnot, they would be wise into taking a page out of the old guy book and put it into timeless wealth like gold and silver, and let it sit there and let time work in your favor. Because I think that type of mentality works until it doesn't. This instant gratification, it's how you can lose everything if you're wrong. And that's why I say when you talk about mining shares and crypto, it belongs up in the top 10%, because if you are wrong, so what? You lost, you gambled, you knew what the outcome could have been, you knew what the risks were, but the base of your pyramid hasn't put you in a position where you're going to miss it too much. Because look, gold is appreciated by 9%, 9.5% compounding for 26 years in a row. So, I mean, not always the same amount, but you average it out, it has. So it's over time, it has worked. And I think that's the lesson to be learned, and why allocations are very important. The really speculative things that can make you a lot of money, you can also lose it just as fast. People don't want to go there and think about that, but that's why, you be prudent in how you deploy things.
Interesting. There is a few more. I don't know how much time you have left because there's
I got
some good
another
ones.
I got another 10 minutes
Okay,
for
so
my next one.
this person says, is pre 33 gold safer from confiscation? And if so, why? Is that the same for junk silver as well?
Junk silver, no. I mean, it is issued by the Treasury. It is money. I don't know that there's any law about it, but I mean, when the executive order that was used to confiscate gold in 33 was put out there, subsequently the laws basically say, and if you look at the pre-33 gold, it exempted dentists, jewelers, and collectors of coins, rare coins, and so it's the motivation you employ more so than the actual metal itself. Are you a collector? So one of the things that we try to do at no extra cost when people buy those coins is to give you variants and dates and mint marks where they were minted: Philadelphia, San Francisco, Denver, um, et cetera, Carson City. Um, Type between St. Gaudens and $20 Liberty, $10 Liberty, $10 Indian, $5 Liberty, $5 Indian, et cetera, and grade. And so we can diversify that for you. Um, so it does say that coins minted prior to 1933 would be considered collectible, but it is the motivation of the collector. Are you a collector, or are you hoarding all one date or whatever? So, I mean, it's impossible. Desperate governments do desperate things, but a lot of people think that it will give you exemption, and they have always offered better upside potential. They're massively undervalued right now. So I would, for me, I like them because they're a piece of Americana. They're very cool to hold a coin that was used as money 100 plus years ago. And you can, what starts out as an investment can very quickly turn into a hobby. You can become a collector, and we can help you do that without spending really that much more money. We just are very cognizant of diversity, different dates, different mint marks, different types, and build a portfolio that very quickly turns into a collection of pre-33 gold coins that, according to the laws, are exempt. You could argue Morgan silver dollars might fit that bill too, but there really isn't any silver legislation that I know of that talks about that. So I like the pre-33s if the price is commensurate with gold bullion coins, just because they're 100 plus years old. They're part of Americana. They're really cool. And for the majority of my career, they were way more expensive than gold eagles, and now they're right there, at least in the majority of the lower uncirculated grades.
Yeah, I really want some pre 33 gold. I don't have any.
We're
So
gonna have
this
to do something
person,
about that. Now I know what to get you for your birthday.
so this person, this is a myth. I really want to bring this up because this person goes, if businesses have to report large purchases, I think it's 600 and above, they say in quotation, then does the government know what and how much metals I
We
have?
don't
Is there,
report any
yeah,
purchase. We
that's,
have no
I,
obligation to report any purchase unless
exactly,
it was paid with
in
green
cash.
cash or money orders,
Yep,
or cashier's check, which are money instruments in excess of $10,000. If you send a
yep,
wire or a check or an e-check, you can buy all the hell you want. You can buy 100
yep.
million and there's no reporting. So we have
Here,
no reporting requirements. The banks might report when you take out more than that, but look, there's nothing illegal about it. And you buy this
right.
stuff and bury it in a hole in your backyard. Maybe you forgot where you buried it. I don't know. Point of it is that in a world of decreasing privacy, there are very few things that will give you that type of anonymity the way gold and silver will.
Yeah, and there's this myth um this $10,000 level. It is if it's in cash above 10,000. Now, theoretically, you could purchase $9,999 and then wait a couple weeks. That might, I mean, see a pattern. It could be, a little, a little suspicious, but it literally is 10,000 above in cash. Like if you went to your local coin shop and isn't it specific metals even with that, or some are exempt?
The $10,000 limit would be any cash in any retail capacity. If you went right now and bought your whole family a wardrobe at Bloomingdale's or Nordstrom's or wherever and went in with 11 grand in cash, you will get issued a form 8300. Um, and that's an excess cash form. If you went to buy a new car and paid with over 10 grand in cash, you get issued a form 8300. So it's not just investments, it's any retail purchase in the United States where you're paying with green money above 10 grand. And,
Okay.
maybe you've made all your money, selling weed for the last 30 years and you got $1 million in 10 and $20 bills in a box that you don't want the government to know about. Well, you're going to have a problem if you go and try to spend over 10 grand with all this cash when your W-2, when your tax return says you haven't made any money over all these years. Well, how'd you get that? That's really the essence of it. If you're someone who's been, employed and making a decent living and paying your taxes and abiding by the law and decide to spend 20 grand on something that you've accumulated cash with, well, big deal. You probably won't get a knock on your door, but you have no real way to prove how you got that money. And you would be someone who shouldn't have that money based upon what they see of you. Well, you might have a problem. That's really what it's all about. But we don't have any. If someone sends us a wire like the two orders we did for $52 million each, there was no reporting at all. Zero. No reason to report it. We received a wire. So that's the truth.
Yeah, I actually mentioned that on that comment. I was like, we don't report anything. And I've had a couple people, more than a couple, actually ask me about that. It's like no matter how much you order, we don't report it. But okay, so last question. This one I'll try to make short. So this person says, the two videos I watched two videos Andy always refers to done by Chris and Bix on silver produced by the Mint. I often heard how the Mint production for Eagles is dropped in the video by the Eagle program manager. He talked about how the Mint was directing silver to new round programs like Morgan's, etc. Since many states are working on legislation to recognize legal tender like minted sovereign Eagles, does Andy think that the Mint not producing up to the public demand as congressional directions, where they are instead taking away this silver from the people and instead diverting it into programs that aren't considered for monetary use? Is this a plan to limit competition to a future CBDC or keep population from holding more wealth outside of the system with such deficits in
Maybe
production?
all of the above. And Bix Sweer did a 3-part interview with Jack Sermon, I think is his name. He's the guy that's been there for 40 years running the Eagle program. And I remember listening to it in my swimming pool last summer. I almost fell off the raft when I heard the guy say this shit. I mean, I've never heard anyone at that level say publicly that he was told by his superiors to only make just as many Silver Eagles as would not create a backlash by the community, by the public, even though they're by law supposed to print or make as many as demand would dictate. He said that he used to be on the other side of the table. He was one of the authorized participants. In other words, he was a purchaser. He would have worked for one of the primary distributors or whatnot. And they came to him and said, we'll take like 36 million more towards the end of the year. And they were only given 12 million. So, you know, that's kind of the situation, is that it is a undisputed fact that the Mint purposely has been issuing not enough Silver Eagles to meet demand, even though that's illegal. Jack Sermon validated it. What is the motivation? Well, I'm not sure about that, but maybe some of all of the above. That's a very well worded question. Here again, one of the what ifs. I don't know what their motivation is, but I would guess it has something to do with along the lines of what he was saying.
Yeah, they blamed it on silver planchets from 2020 that you
Which is a
couldn't
bunch of
find.
bullshit,
Yeah.
because and even the head of the of Sunshine Mining more or less said that in another Bix interview, where, you know, he basically said that they buy the 1,000 ounce silver bars and deliver them to Sunshine Mining, who makes the planchets. So they're not short on planchets if there are 1,000 ounce bars to be delivered. It's weird. The whole thing is
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I looked into
And
that. Yeah.
it was deeper than that. That was what people
Yeah.
thought. But if you listen to the interview with the head of Sunshine Mining, you'll hear that that isn't really the case.
Yeah, that was a whole because I remember that other guy that worked with US Mint also tried to tap it and said, well, Sunshine Mint produces all the silver they sell to all these other mints, and US has this law that the Treasury can only purchase the silver from them at spot price. So why would Sunshine Mint want to sell to the US Mint when other mints are allowed to pay more than spot price? They had this, and now we outsource our silver, so we kind of shot ourselves in the foot since we are
To
reliant,
my knowledge, is not
yeah.
true. And that
Okay.
was what a lot
Yeah,
of
that
people
was,
thought. And I even thought
yeah.
that too. But what he basically
Yeah.
said is they're not buying the planchets from them. They're buying the bars and taking delivery off of Comex. The bars are sent to Sunshine and they make the planchets for them. So it's not
Oh,
about the cost of buying the
yeah.
planchets and them being delivered. It's they're providing the silver. All they're doing
Yeah.
in essence is making the discs for them.
Yeah. Lately, so much has been getting revealed with the US Mint, US military and all that, yeah, I'm not surprised. It's a lot deeper. Well, anyways, I know you got to go. So I thought
We
this
can
was,
we pick up
yeah.
where we left off again. I know we're doing this from last week.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to come back and do one with you again later on in the week and finish these questions or do it
Yeah.
live, whatever works best for you. But
Yeah.
it's something I enjoy doing, getting these questions answered because people want to know. So let's give them as much info as we possibly can to the best of our ability. Maybe we can help shed some light on some things
Yeah.
and cumulatively when we put our minds together, maybe even things that neither you and I have even thought about or know, we can talk it through. So I like doing these and
Mm.
happy to come back anytime and do them with you.
Yeah, and the questions are always so good as well. So many different types of questions. So, all right, well, I will let you go. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Remember, we have silver, gold, platinum, palladium for sale. You can email me slayer@milesfranklin.com or call me 330-485-6172. I'll make sure you guys are hooked up. Also, we'll be getting the specials in probably tomorrow at the latest. So I'll send those out in a newsletter, or you guys could just hit me up for them as well. Anyways, thanks
Roger
for tuning
that.
in. This was Silver Slayer. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.